The awakening of ashes. The war had burned across the galaxy for so long that the stars themselves seemed dimmer. Empires had risen and fallen, leaving behind only ash, wreckage, and the hollow echoes of forgotten oaths. Yet among the survivors, a whisper persisted, an ancient name spoken with reverence and dread alike. The Eyes of Fire. Not a ship, not a fleet, not a weapon in the way most understood weapons. The name belonged to something else, something older, buried deep in the ruins of humanity's darkest age. A relic forged not to win battles, but to end empires. And as fate would have it, the stars themselves seemed to conspire to bring it back. The forgotten battlefield. The planet of Dareth 9 was nothing more than a graveyard. Its skies choked with black smoke, its surface littered with burned-out husks of once proud cities. Alien banners, cracked and torn, fluttered weakly over corpses that had no one left to mourn them. It was here, beneath the poisoned skies, that humanity's last resistance fled. Commander Ilara Vane stood on the fractured edge of an overpass, watching alien warforms sweep across the ruined horizon. Each was a titan of steel and bone, towering machines bristling with weapons, their forms carved with the precision of a species that had dominated wars for 1,000 years. They were the Sithari Dominion's warlords, and they were relentless. Her soldiers, ragged, weary, half-starved, waited in silence around her. No songs, no speeches, just the grinding sound of armored boots against cracked ferrocrete and the quiet, desperate breathing of men and women who knew this was their final stand. And then the ground trembled. At first, they thought it was the warlords marching closer. But the tremor was deeper, older, more resonant. The earth itself seemed to groan as though remembering something terrible. Across the battlefield, alien warforms paused, their towering heads turning toward the distant mountains. A voice, deep and metallic, seemed to roll across the ruins. Not through the air, but through the marrow of every living thing. Who calls the fire? The chamber below. Ilara had seen the schematics once, hidden in forbidden archives on Mars before it fell. Humanity, desperate and cornered, had built a final safeguard, something so dangerous that it was buried instead of unleashed. A creation born from rage, loss, and the will to survive extinction. Eyes of Fire, they had named it. The alien warlords thought it was myth, a bluff humanity whispered to frighten invaders. But Ilara had read enough to know the truth. It was not myth. It was waiting. And now, as the mountains split and molten rivers poured from their sides, she realized the relic had awakened. The birth of fire. From beneath the planet's crust, something vast began to rise. Not a ship, not entirely a machine, more a god of war forged from iron and flame, its form so massive it dwarfed the alien warforms arrayed against it. Its eyes, molten cores of orange and white, burned like miniature suns, searing through the smoke. Every movement shook the ground, every step a quake. Plates of scorched metal slid and locked across its body, forming armor that looked less like it was constructed and more like it had been grown from the planet itself. The alien warlords hesitated for the first time in centuries. Titans that had never known fear now faltered as the relic turned its gaze upon them. The sky bled red as the machine's core flared, vents across its body spewing fire like volcanic breath. Its voice, ancient, resonant, and terrible, rolled across the battlefield once more. Empire, dominion, tyranny, all will burn. The Eyes of Fire had woken. The first strike, the alien commander, a towering figure encased in obsidian armor, barked an order in guttural Sithari tongue. Their warforms surged forward, plasma cannons and energy blades igniting as they roared into battle. The ground cracked beneath the weight of their charge, but the relic did not retreat. Instead, it lifted its colossal arm, plates shifting with a grinding scream of ancient machinery. From its chest, a low hum built into a shriek, until a lance of pure incandescent energy erupted forth. The beam swept across the battlefield like the scythe of a god. Alien titans, proud and mighty, simply disintegrated, metal and flesh alike reduced to molten slag in an instant. The earth where they stood turned glassy, glowing with residual heat. Human soldiers dropped to their knees, some in awe, some in terror. Even Alara, who had prayed for this awakening, felt the weight of what had been unleashed. This was not a weapon of war. It was an executioner. Whispers of fear. Far above, orbiting ships of the Sithari Dominion recorded the battle in silence. Commanders, long confident in their dominion, watched their titans fall like wheat before a scythe. Some refused to believe what they saw, claiming it was illusion or trickery. But as the eyes of fire turned upward, its gaze searing through orbit, every commander felt it, as if the machine was not just looking at their ships, but into their souls. "I was forged to end empires," it said, its voice vibrating through comms, through the hulls of ships, through the bones of every living soldier. "And yours is next. Humanity's stand." For the first time in months, hope ignited in the hearts of Alara's soldiers. They rose from the rubble, shouting, screaming, firing their weapons with renewed fury, not because they believed they could win, but because something greater fought beside them. The eyes of fire moved with deliberate, unstoppable force. Every strike of its colossal arms crushed alien warforms. Every beam of fire from its core tore holes in the Dominion's ranks. It did not falter, it did not hesitate. Alara gripped her rifle tighter, rallying her troops to push forward alongside the Titan. Her voice cut through the chaos. "Fight! This is our hour. Stand with it or die forgotten." And they did. Humans, broken and beaten, surged forward into the flames. The oath of fire. By the time the smoke began to clear, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Rivers of molten slag cut across the ruins. Alien titans lay shattered, their remains glowing red-hot. Human survivors stood in silence, staring at the colossal figure that towered above them. Its eyes dimmed slightly, though their fiery glow remained. The Titan lowered itself, placing one massive hand into the earth as if anchoring itself once more. Commander Alara dared to step forward. Dust and heat whipped around her as she raised her voice toward the giant. "Are you with us?" she asked. The great machine tilted its head, its molten gaze fixing on her. When it spoke, the sound was like the crackle of 1,000 burning pyres. "I am not with you. I am you. I was forged from your fury, your grief, your endless will to resist. I am your last fire." The soldiers fell silent, realization dawning across their faces. The Titan was not merely a machine. It was humanity's rage made manifest, their collective will given form. The eyes of fire rose to its full height again, its gaze turning toward the horizon where more enemy ships descended. "And I will not stop until every empire that sought to chain you is ash." The flame rekindled. Alara looked upon the Titan and understood. This was not salvation. This was a curse born of desperation. Humanity had built something too terrible to control. But for the first time in years, the future was not already written. They had a chance. And as the ground trembled beneath the Titan's steps, she whispered a vow under her breath. "Then let the galaxy tremble. We'll burn our names into the stars." The eyes of fire marched forward, its molten gaze fixed on the heavens. And above, the Sithari Dominion began to realize the truth. They were no longer the hunters. They were prey. The fire that devours empires. The Dominion thought the first battle was an anomaly, an unlucky clash, a myth given flesh, a relic of a bygone war that would collapse under the weight of their armadas. They were wrong. The eyes of fire did not rest. It marched from battlefield to battlefield, a colossus of molten metal and wrath, dragging humanity with it like sparks pulled in the wake of a wildfire. Wherever its gaze fell, empires crumbled. The galaxy was beginning to whisper again. Not of the Sithari Dominion, whose fleets had ruled for millennia. No, the whispers were of humanity, the broken species who had awakened their last curse. And with each battle, the galaxy trembled a little more. The siege of Orith Prime. The first true test came on Orith Prime, the jewel of the Dominion's throne worlds. Dozens of orbital platforms circled the planet, each bristling with enough firepower to level continents. Thousands of Dominion warships filled the skies. To any sane commander, the battle was suicide. But the Eyes of Fire was not sane. From orbit, Dominion admirals watched in disbelief as the Titan walked through space itself, its molten core flaring with impossible energy. Gravity bent around it. Hull plating melted before its fury. Beams of incandescent light shot from its chest, carving through orbital stations as if they were paper. For the first time, the Dominion felt what humanity had felt for centuries. Hopelessness. Elara and her soldiers fought in the ruins below, human rifles flashing against Dominion legions. Yet their eyes kept darting upward, to the Titan walking among the stars. The sight filled them with a terrible mix of awe and fear. One soldier whispered, voice shaking, "That thing isn't fighting for us. It's fighting because of us." Elara said nothing, because deep down she knew he was right. The fracturing of the Dominion. News spread faster than the flames. Systems once loyal to the Dominion began to waver. Worlds that had never known rebellion rose up, seizing their chance while their masters reeled. But fear was not humanity's ally alone. It crept into human hearts as well. Some whispered that the Eyes of Fire was not savior, but executioner. That once it had ended the Dominion, it would turn on them. Elara heard these whispers in the bunkers, in the comms, even in her own mind. Every time she looked at the Titan, she wondered, when it says it was forged from our rage, how long before that rage consumes us too? And yet, when the Dominion struck back, there was no choice but to fight at its side. The warlord's last stand. The Dominion's High Council unleashed their final card. The Crimson Warlords, giants bred for nothing but destruction. These were not machines, but living titans, fused with weaponry and trained from birth to annihilate armies. Each had shattered entire civilizations. They descended on the volcanic world of Theros, where the Eyes of Fire had cornered the Dominion's fleet. The ground shook as the warlords landed. They towered like mountains of flesh and steel, their roars shaking the skies. Their weapons glowed, their blades humming with energy sharp enough to split atoms. Elara and her soldiers watched from the cliffs, knowing they could do nothing but survive what came next. The Titan stood still, its molten eyes glowing brighter. For the first time, it faced equals, not prey but predators. The battle that followed would be remembered in every corner of the galaxy. The first warlord charged, its blade crackling. The Titan caught the strike with its bare hand, molten cracks spreading across its armor, then retaliated with a beam that turned the warlord's chest into glass. The creature collapsed, a smoking husk, but the others struck together. Blades pierced, cannons fired, claws raked against metal. The Titan staggered. Its voice roared across the planet, echoing into every soul. I was forged for this. Test me, and burn with me. It fought like a storm given flesh. Every strike melted mountains. Every roar split the sky. By the time it was done, the warlords lay broken, their corpses burning like fallen suns. The Dominion's fleet scattered. The galaxy held its breath. Fire without chains. When the smoke cleared, Elara descended with her soldiers into the battlefield. The Titan loomed above them, cracked and bleeding molten light, its armor broken in places but still standing. She raised her voice, demanding what none dared ask. Will you stop? The Dominion is falling. You've won. The Titan lowered its head, its gaze burning into her. For a moment, she thought she saw not molten fire but something else. Faces, human faces, millions of them, screaming and burning, all fused into the furnace of its being. Victory is not enough, it said. I was forged to end empires. Until none remain, I burn. The words chilled her more than any Dominion fleet ever had. Humanity had created something that did not know peace, something that only knew endings. The choice of humanity. The Dominion collapsed in weeks. Its fleets shattered, its throne worlds burning, its rulers executed by their own fearful subjects. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was without a master. But the Eyes of Fire did not stop. It turned its gaze toward other empires, the Veil Consortium, the Nerith Hierarchs, the Koran dynasties. Powers that had never struck humanity, but had built their empires on the same chains and blood as the Dominion. One by one, they trembled. One by one, they prepared for war. Alara stood on the bridge of a captured Dominion cruiser, staring at the Colossus through the viewport. Her officers whispered nervously behind her. Some begged to unleash it further, to let it burn every empire until humanity alone stood. Others pleaded to shut it down before they became tyrants themselves. She thought of the soldiers' words. It isn't fighting for us. It's fighting because of us. If they let it continue, there would be no end. No empire left standing, including their own. And so Alara made a choice. The last command. They lured the Titan to a dead system, a world without light, its star long extinguished. Humanity gathered what remained of its fleets, every ship they had scavenged, and encircled the Colossus. When it realized what they intended, its voice thundered with rage. You would chain the fire again? You would bury what you are. Alara stood firm on the comms, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. We didn't make you to rule the galaxy. We made you to survive. The Dominion is gone. Our survival is ours to claim, not yours. The Titan roared, its eyes blazing brighter than ever. For a moment, the fleet shook, ready to break. And then, slowly, impossibly, the light began to dim. The Colossus lowered itself into the planet's blackened crust, molten cracks fading as if it were returning to slumber. Its voice softened, though it still burned with fire. Then survive. Remember what you are. And when the next empire comes to chain you, call me again. The world shook as the Titan sank into the darkness, its fiery eyes fading last of all. Silence followed. Embers. Years later, songs were sung of that day. Some called Alara a traitor for burying humanity's greatest weapon. Others called her a savior for sparing the galaxy from a fire that would never stop burning. But in the quiet of space, when the stars flickered strangely, some swore they could still feel it, the furnace heartbeat of something vast, waiting beneath the ash. The eyes of fire was not gone, only sleeping, and as long as empires rose, as long as chains were forged, the galaxy would live with a single, unshakable truth. Humanity had built something that could end them all, and one day it would rise again,